You have never seen anything like them before. A man fused to an animal the size of a small house.
Not the metal they wear, catching the sun in impossible ways, shining from head to foot, defying anything alive.
Not the weapons they carry, sharp and deadly, unlike anything seen, designed for a different kind of war.
Not even the massive dogs, enormous and snarling beasts, straining, trained to hate the very smell of you. It is their faces, a color you have never seen before, looking at your city with a chilling, predatory gaze.
You are standing in Tenochtitlan, the center of existence, and you are about to watch the world as you know it end.
Tenochtitlan, built on an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco, connected to the shore by 3 great, wide causeways.
Wide enough to march 10 men abreast, a feat of engineering. So extraordinary, Europeans would later not believe it.
They would think these accounts were exaggerating, assuming nothing this magnificent could exist in unknown lands. But it is here, all of it, a city of 200,000. In 1519, one of the 5 largest cities on Earth.
Larger than London, larger than Paris, larger than any city in Spain. The market at Tlatelolco, visited by 60,000 daily.
Hernán Cortés would later write, he could not find its end. Every product imaginable, from food to precious gold.
Feathers, medicine, pottery, live animals, spices, rubber. Every transaction monitored by officials ensuring fair prices.
A bureaucracy of commerce so sophisticated it operated without currency, functioning more efficiently than anything Cortés had ever seen.
The temples are the thing that will stay with you forever. The Templo Mayor, rising from the city's heart, a stepped pyramid. 2 staircases climb its face. 2 shrines sit at the top. Dedicated to Tlaloc and Huitzilopochtli, the stone is clean. Everything in this city is clean, with sanitation systems. A constant awareness of hygiene that astonished the Europeans. Aqueducts brought fresh water from the mainland. The air smelled of flowers from the chinampas, floating gardens.
Where Mexa grew crops directly on the lake's surface for generations. Beds of woven reeds and soil, somehow producing maize and squash.
You are a merchant, living 2 streets from the great market. Your life is loud, rich, and deeply familiar every day.
The city breathes around you in rhythms you know by feel. Morning prayers, the smell of cooking fires, familiar and comforting.
The sound of the market before it opens, a quiet prelude. The festivals marking the calendar with drums and colors.
The particular kind of communal joy only a city this size generates. And then the strangers came.
They landed on the coast months ago, an alien sight. Word reached Tenochtitlan in fragments, strange beings.
Pale, armored, riding animals no one had a name for. The Emperor Moctezuma received the news with complexity.
A complexity visible in the court's eyes, even as his face stayed neutral. There were old prophecies, whispered in the night, and dates in the calendar that aligned uncomfortably. The possibility these strangers were something divine, sent.
It was the wrong conclusion, but an understandable one. And in the end, that understandable decision cost everything.
Moctezuma invited them in, not out of weakness, but out of strategy, caution, a rational decision.
He sent gifts, messengers, offered hospitality. The strangers received it all and kept coming.
By November 1519, Cortés and his soldiers marched in. Moctezuma met them with a procession of lords and flowers.
A full ceremony of a god-king welcoming his guests. You watched from the side of the road, a silent observer.
You remember the sound of the horses on the causeway stones. The men in armor, looking with hunger at everything. The temples, the market, the gold on the palace walls. A hunger you recognized before understanding what they were. You had seen men look at things they meant to own. These men looked at your entire city that very way.
Within a week, Moctezuma was under house arrest. A god-king imprisoned in his very own palace.
The sequence of events over the next 2 years is brutal. Too fast, too brutal to connect into a story.
It keeps feeling like something else must be about to happen.
Some event that restores the order you once knew.
Some explanation that could make all of this make sense. It doesn't come. Only silence remains.
The first disaster is the smallpox, invisible and deadly. The invisible weapon nobody saw arriving, nobody could defend against.
Nobody in this hemisphere had ever encountered it before. Carried in blood and breath, spreading before anyone understood.
The disease moved through the city with lethal speed, appearing to the people like something supernatural. Families healthy on a Tuesday are dead by the weekend. The priests treated it as divine judgment.
The doctors tried everything they knew, but nothing worked. Nothing in 2 centuries of medicine prepared them for this. Smallpox killed between 1/4 and half the population. Before a single battle was formally declared, the city bled. You stood outside and listened, agonizingly, and went home with different arms, lighter and wrong.
This is the part history sometimes smooths over. Cortés did not conquer Tenochtitlan with 400 men.
He conquered it with an army of over 100,000 allies. From nations the Aztec Empire had dominated and sacrificed. The Tlaxcalans, longtime enemies, joined with fury. So did others, their rage accumulating for generations.
The fall of Tenochtitlan was a regional uprising. Cortés was smart enough to position himself at its front. When the fighting started, diplomatic threads snapped. The violence building since 1519 finally broke through. It was different from every war the Mexica had fought. Aztec warfare had rules, ritual, capturing for sacrifice.
More honorable than killing outright, but Spanish did not. The Spanish killed. Quickly, permanently, without ritual.
Without the exchange, Aztec cosmology built around war. They were fighting a completely different kind of conflict.
The siege begins in May 1521, tightening its grip. Cortés cuts the causeways, severing vital lifelines. He cuts the aqueducts, stopping the fresh water supply. The fresh water stops. The food stops.
The city, once fed by precision, is now an island, with no supply lines, no reinforcements, weakened by disease.
You make decisions now you never imagined making. What can you eat? Who gets the last of the maize?
Whether the lake water.
Because you understand how close you are to making the same ones. The fighting in the streets, unlike anything the city held.
The Mexica warriors fight with everything, from rooftops. They fight from the canals, utilizing every advantage.
They pull up the very causeways the Spanish are crossing. And it works. The siege drags on for 75 days.
Much longer than Cortés expected, a brutal stalemate. The city fights street by street, canal by canal, temple by temple, a final, desperate stand. Cuauhtémoc, the last emperor, young and fierce.
25 years old, taking power when smallpox took his predecessor, directing the defense with a ferocity admired even by Spaniards.
But the numbers are too wrong, too overwhelming. The disease had done too much, weakened them profoundly. The allies pressing in from every side, too many to count. The food and water had been gone for far too long.
On the 13th of August, 1521, a final, desperate gamble. Cuauhtémoc tries to escape across the lake, but is captured.
He asks Cortés to kill him, a plea for honor. Cortés refuses, for he has other uses for an emperor. And Tenochtitlan falls silent, a profound stillness. What happens next is systematic destruction. The Spanish tear down the temples, sacred ground desecrated. The Templo Mayor, center of the Mexica world, demolished.
A cathedral will eventually be built on its foundations, the largest in the Americas, a deliberate statement of power.
A statement about whose god now presides over this ground. The streets and canals are filled in, systematically buried.
The lake is slowly drained over the following centuries. The city, built on water, buried under a land city.
Spanish in its grid, its churches, and its plazas. Mexico City grows on top of it, layer by layer.
Today, if you stand in the Zócalo, the great central square, you are standing on the ruins of Tenochtitlan's ceremonial center.
In 1978, electrical workers digging near the cathedral, they struck stone, a forgotten secret revealed.
They called in archaeologists, eager for discovery. The archaeologists found the Templo Mayor, buried 8 feet deep, and
almost perfectly preserved under 5 centuries of city. They have been excavating it ever since, uncovering its past.
The sacrificial altars, offerings, and carved stones. The faces of gods that watched the city at its height.
One of the greatest cities ever built was destroyed. In less than 2 years, not just conquered, but erased.
The language was suppressed, the books were burned. The calendar was outlawed, its traditions shattered.
An empire that had taken centuries to build was dismantled, with a speed that still seems impossible to grasp.
At its peak, Tenochtitlan had no equal in the Western Hemisphere, and few rivals anywhere else on Earth. A global marvel. And yet most people today could not tell you what it looked like. A lost world, a forgotten splendor, buried by history. But some cities weren't conquered, nor were they destroyed. They were simply abandoned, fading into silence. Not by war, not by disease, not by any enemy you can name. The people just stopped living there, walking away. They walked away and left everything behind, all their lives, and disappeared into history without any explanation. No one, in 500 years of trying, has been able to say exactly why. That story is next, a profound mystery awaiting.
The sight of them was unlike anything conceived. Alien figures, bearing strange power, had finally arrived.
Their metal, a stark contrast to the living world. A cold, hard gleam against a city of warmth. The weapons felt inherently wrong, dangerous. Their sharp edges promised a different kind of conflict. The massive dogs, bred for raw ferocity. A visceral hatred for an unknown, foreign scent.
It was the hunger in their eyes that truly struck fear. Looking at your city as something already claimed.
Tenochtitlan, built with mastery, defied convention. Its causeways, arteries of life.
A clean city, a testament to its people's care. The floating gardens, a marvel of sustainable life. Your life was woven into the city's rich fabric. The familiar rhythms of trade, prayer, and festival. Word arrived like a storm from the distant coast. Strange beings, a mystery wrapped in prophecy.
The ancient prophecies, dates aligning ominously.
A fateful decision, born of caution, sealed their doom.
The grand entry, a meeting of 2 worlds. Witnessing the hunger in their eyes, a chilling truth.
The swift collapse of power, Moctezuma imprisoned. Events spiraling, a brutal, incomprehensible descent.
The invisible enemy, smallpox, ravaging the city. Killing a quarter, perhaps half, before any battle.
A personal cost, the sun lost to the unseen enemy. While the city bled, Cortés built his great army.
A clash of worlds, different rules of war. The Spanish killed, without ritual, without pause.
The siege tightens, water and food cut off. A population already weak, now starved and thirsty.
Street by street, canal by canal, a desperate defense. Cuauhtémoc leading with a fury even his enemies admired.
The numbers too great, hope extinguished. Tenochtitlan falls silent, its vibrant heart stilled.
The systematic erasure begins, layer by layer. A new god, a new city, built on the old's demise.
Standing in the Zócalo, on a buried world. The Templo Mayor, rediscovered, speaks from the deep. Offerings and God's faces, witnessing centuries of silence. A magnificent city, destroyed and systematically erased. Language suppressed, books burned, the calendar outlawed. An empire dismantled with impossible speed and brutality. At its peak, Tenochtitlan had no equal on Earth. Yet most people today could not name or picture it. Some cities merely vanished, not conquered, not destroyed. People simply walked away, leaving everything behind, disappearing into history without explanation, a mystery, and no one has ever truly known why. That story is next.